Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Yeah, of course, yeah. So, a very long story short, I got into training when I was 16 because I was doing judo at the time in the junior ranks, and everybody was like twice the size of me, twice as strong as me. So I thought, right, okay, I need to put some muscle on. Luckily, my best friend owned a gym, so I joined his gym, or joined his dad's gym, I should say. Joined his gym, started training, and kind of caught the bug from there. And then fast forward nearly 5 or 6 years, his dad unfortunately passed away, and then we bought the gym. I put an investment in, bought into the gym, and then we were running the gym 50-50. And then from there, on a very informal basis, I was kind of coaching people, not really knowing I was coaching people. And again, as well as catching the bug for training, caught the bug for coaching people, helping people, seeing them develop a physique. And actually, I probably get more enjoyment seeing other people develop than I do myself. And then again, fast forward 7 years, I went full time coaching in 2021 and haven't looked back since. I would say, I think probably when I was growing up, I always watched action films like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, people like that in as the main characters, and maybe that was a bit of subliminal conditioning there. Also, my dad was kind of like my hero growing up, and he was very active. He was in the military. He was in very good shape and things when he was younger, so that was always like an inspiration for me. So I think those two, in combination with the fact I did a lot of sport when I was growing up, so I always valued physical attributes, and then just generally, as well as all of those things, as cliche as it sounds, kind of catching the bug of improvement, and in this sense, physical self improvement. Yeah, physically and metaphorically. Yeah, yeah. Well, so my dad's background isn't necessarily in traditional weight training. Although he always tells me in one of his units, he had the biggest arms. But he did rugby growing up, and then what he did was a combination of, I guess, what he just intuitively thought was good, and also in like what he got, how he learned in the military. And just for reference, he was in the French Foreign Legion, so that's quite a, let's say, trying to use the right term here, but quite a strict military unit. So yeah, his sort of training style kind of reflected that. Yeah, yeah, because probably cliche kind of stereotypical boy. I didn't never like sitting down for long periods of time, so PE was always a good excuse to get outside and like do something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was about to put it in and say your experience of it mirrors like the majority of people. I would say where they've, for whatever reason, they've not been introduced to a gym environment before, so they might not feel comfortable or confident being in there. They don't necessarily know what to do, and that's definitely one of the biggest benefits you can get from investing in a coach, because it's somebody to kind of, for want of a better way of putting it, to hold your hand, show you the ropes, go through everything that you need to go through, all the fundamentals, and just kind of in a really linear way, kind of like manage your progression from beginner to intermediate to advanced, depending on how far you want to take it. This is a funny one because in business you're always told to niche down and like to try and find your niche, but I don't. I don't find I've got a niche in the typical sense. I've not got a really specific group of people I work with. I work with complete beginners all the way to bodybuilding competitors. So I've got a very broad range of people, but again, broadly, it's generally people because I've got so much experience. I've been doing this for many years now. I don't quite look it, but I'm 34 years old and I've been training since I was 16. So I've got quite a few years under my belt. I can manage somebody's path if they're a beginner or if they're a seasoned competitor. I can manage their path and try and improve it. So it's generally anybody looking to build muscle, lose body fat, gain more confidence, improve their mental health, well-being. So yeah, a very broad range of people. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think this is actually something when I first got into coaching, or when I first got into coaching, when didn't even know I was coaching. If you would have asked me, I would have said, all you need is a diet plan and a training plan. But actually, I found probably the biggest benefit is mindset and improving somebody's mindset. And it depends on where they're at. I always meet somebody where they're at. And it depends on what issues they specifically struggle with. But just as an example, I deal with a lot of people who so normally you'd think somebody would want to be coached because they want to lose weight. But I deal with people a lot of the time who have almost like a fear, for want of a better way of putting it, but a fear of gaining weight. And then I coach them through from a mindset perspective, all of the benefits of being in a calorie surplus, all of the benefits of building muscle, all of the benefits of seeing intentional weight gain on the scale, and trying to get over the psychological barrier of actually intentionally putting on weight, especially when they've come from a weight loss background. You get conditioned to have a very potentially problematic relationship with the scale, and all you want to do is see the scale weight go down. So when you see it stabilize or go up, it can be very difficult. Yeah, yeah. There's going to be broad ranges. Generally, say somebody just gets into training and they come to me, if they've got a relatively good body composition and they want to build muscle, generally they're going to get beginner gains. The first, say, 6 months of lifting, they're going to get very quick results very quickly. And then during that time, you can assess how well of a responder they are, because there is some individual variance. You get some people that respond really well and some people that don't respond as well. But yeah, so generally I'd be looking at probably somebody in that position, looking at putting on about 10% of the body weight and then seeing where they are, seeing how they respond, seeing how much muscle we put on versus body fat. Um, and in terms of coming to me, it's if they've got a good relationship. It depends on their journey into like physique improvement. But if they've got a good relationship with the mirror, with the body image, that's definitely a lot easier. The most difficult part is when maybe they've spent too much time on social media. They've seen all these unrealistic, unachievable physiques. They've got like a skewed lens of what they should look like. That's when it becomes very difficult. Yes, yeah, yeah. So next year potentially, I'm going to be competing in. I'm going to do so. I compete in natural bodybuilding. I'm going to do some of the UK natural bodybuilding competitions. I've got quite a few clients potentially that are going to compete next year, and quite a few are going to compete in 2025. So I might try and do competitions with them, maybe or maybe not. We'll see. But aside from the UK competitions, there's two I've got my eye on. There's the WNBF, so the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation. There's one in Malaysia and one in Taiwan, and I'm planning to do those next year. Um, in, if that's the long term goal, yeah, for sure, definitely. But what I would do is what I normally do because competing. If somebody comes to me as a first time competitor, depending on when they want to compete and depending on where they're at with their physique and things like that, and we'll always reverse engineer it. So I'll see where they're currently at. I'll see where they want to get to, and then I'll see whether what I can do, whether we can realistically do it with my support. And if we can, we'll go for it. And expand on that a little bit, what I would do, because competitions, bodybuilding preparation is very difficult. I would normally encourage them to go through a long-term dieting phase or a longer-term dieting phase, and maybe get used to get familiar with some of the aspects of bodybuilding preparation. And we might do like a mock prep effectively, where we do like a photo shoot or something similar, and that sort of lets them test the water without having all the pressure of getting on stage at the end of it. Yeah, yeah. And shout, "You don't know me, son." Yeah. Every mile, let's go now. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. When somebody look thinking about like the goal equation, which I'm going to butcher the term here a little bit, but the stronger somebody's goal value is, the more the more inclined they are, the easier they're going to find it to make sacrifices to work towards that goal, and also possibly shift their environment a little bit better, so it's going to be a little bit more conducive to reaching that goal. So yeah, for sure, there's a big, let's say, gulf in development when somebody says, right, okay, I'm just going to lose 10 pounds versus, right, on this date I'm going to step on stage and I want to achieve this result. Yeah, so I like the term, I'm trying to remember the term now. The term proximity, yeah, proximal development. Let me just remember the term. I can't remember the quite term, but right, let me rephrase that. Sorry, George. Yeah, so I like the term of the sorry, I like the concept of the area of proximal development, and that's essentially, it's almost like the Goldilocks effect. You don't want something to be too challenging, but you don't want something to have no challenge at all. There's like a Goldilocks effect there, a just right spot where we want somebody to be operating in to get proximal development. If something's too easy, they're going to get bored. It's not going to be challenging. If it's too challenging, they're going to give up. So, for example, if somebody was a complete beginner and they said they've never even stepped foot into a gym, and they say, right, I want to step on stage, I've got to reverse them back. I've got to like make them take some steps backward, and then go from, right, okay, first we're going to hit this milestone, then this milestone, then this milestone, and do it in a stepwise manner like that. Yeah, so if they're just starting, the first milestone would be hitting a new body weight. So, and then in combination with hitting that body weight, generally we're going to be putting on muscle as well. So yeah, first milestone is, right, okay, you're at 70 kilograms right now. Let's hit 75 kilogram. Let's see where you're looking. And then we go from there. If they're still looking good, let's hit 80 kilogram, and kind of just break it down into that. And then when they've built an appreciable amount of muscle, that's when we might think about, right, okay, now you've got a physique which justifies dieting down and getting on stage. Yeah, this would depend on a couple of factors. Usually, I would say when somebody gets to the point, if they want to compete, when they get to the point where their abs are blurred and they want to compete in the short term future, like the next year, we're probably thinking, right, okay, if we're going to be stepping on stage, we want to be close, like we want to be within shooting distance of stage weight or of stage condition. If somebody's got really good markers, if they're looking to compete in a couple of years' time, if the training's going really well, if the diet's on point, if the mood is good, energy is good, sleep is good, if everything's in a good place and the training's still progressive, then I'd be inclined to say, right, okay, let's push this further. as long as the goal the next time, essentially when they want to be lean, whether it's competing, whether it's a holiday, whatever it might be, as long as that's far enough into the future where we can realistically get them lean, then we can still carry on pushing. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, as an example, going back to the when we're in a muscle building phase, what we do. Yep. Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. I could probably. That's probably going to be better. It's just whether it's in shot or not. Right. Can you? Maybe I'll just put it. Yeah. Yeah. So is that going to be that better? I can. I've got some adjustments here which might increase the volume. Is this volume going up at all? No, probably not. No, that's the headphone. Sorry, that's the headphone volume. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll keep it. I'll keep it here now. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I can't even remember the zone of proximal development. No. Yeah. Yeah, and just as an example, sometimes we'll strategically have something called a mini cut, which is like a short term dieting phase, which is aggressive, but it potentiates future gains. So, for example, if somebody's long term goal is to gain, let's say we're going from 70 kg to 85 kg, just as examples, and we get to that 80 kg mark, but they're like, Dean, I can't adhere to a surplus anymore. I literally can't get any more food down me. I'm bloated all day. I'm too uncomfortable. My sleep's getting poor. My training performance is suffering. Then it's like, right, okay, we might be able to run a mini cut here, 4 to 6 weeks of aggressive dieting, stimulate things, like get things in a better place, get your appetite in a better place, get like all of these variables, markers in a better place, and then we can push for future and further muscle gain. Yep. 34, 34. Couple of cliche things. So definitely don't don't rush. You've got a very long training career ahead of you, so don't worry about the next like 6 months or 1 year. Think about the next 5 years and 10 years. Another one would be, sorry, George, I'm pausing it. There's something in the back of my mind. I can't remember what I was going to say. Come on, dude. Yes, yeah, process. Yeah. So another one would be enjoying the process. So sometimes what we do is we get fixated on the end goal. So, for example, what's very common is you go through a bodybuilding prep, and this was certainly for me my first bodybuilding prep, and even beyond that, all I was fixated on was stepping on stage. But really, everything that was all the development, all the enjoyment was happening along the way. But because I was so fixated on my end goal, I didn't take any time, I didn't take any perspective or time to actually appreciate what was happening and the cliche word, enjoying the process. Yeah, 100%. And it's almost like there's a reason why people climb Mount Everest and not take a helicopter to the top, because everything is about that journey, getting there, and kind of a destination is just collateral, and everything, all the enjoyment, all the development, all the things you learn about yourself, that happens on the journey on the way there. And it's the same with a bodybuilding prep or almost any phase. If you're going through a dieting phase, a muscle gaining phase, you do need to try and enjoy the steps along the way, as opposed to just focusing on the destination. Yeah. 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 I wished. Yeah. Yeah, and on that topic, I remember I when I was a kid, I thought it was just going to be like, right, okay, you go in the gym, you get your muscle, and you're done. It's fine. It's sorted. But yeah, you need to be. Yeah, it has to become so habitual to maintain it and then to continue improving. Yeah, 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 yeah. I thought like in my first 6 months of lifting, it's like right, okay, I'll just get the body, I'll just get to Arnold's level, and then I'll stop. I'll be fine. It's like at first I've never reached that, but yeah, yeah, yeah. It probably without trying to get too scientific. I think in that stage, we've got like a ceiling of how much progress we can make with our physique, and the first 80% of it is very easy to maintain or very easy to achieve, and it's kind of that last 20% or broader numbers, maybe at last 40%, let's say, but it's that last portion which is more difficult. So it's almost like there's a point of diminishing returns where you get your newbie gains and then it becomes incrementally more and more difficult to get past that point. And I think so on that from that sort of philosophy around it, it's like we can get the 80-20 rule, we can get that 80% very quickly, and that last 20% is what's more difficult. And that's definitely where I think probably the majority of lifters I see in the gym, they've got the newbie gains, and then all we do is they continue to do what got them those newbie gains. But to progress past that point, to progress past like the beginner level, you need to start either learning new nutritional practices, training practices, and then evolve into the intermediate and advanced stage. Yeah, 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 yeah. And yeah, that's definitely one. That's a scenario where a coach can come in and kind of unlock that next level for you, because it's human nature. We get the feedback in those first, like let's say 6 months, 6 months or a year. You make loads of progress, and the feedback is right. This is working. This is making me progress, and then the expectation is it's going to continue making me progress. But yeah, it's kind of like what works now might not work forever. That's a very good point. So I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps. I was thinking of joining the military. But as I got older and older, so a bit more context. My dad was in the military, and then he worked abroad all his life. And actually, he's 60 now, turning 61 this year, and he still works abroad. And when I was growing up, I thought the older I got, and the more I missed my dad when he was away, I kind of figured, right, actually, if I start a family one day, if I have children, I don't want them to be in the same situation I'm in. So that's when I kind of started turning a corner, if you like, looking at different avenues. But certainly up until about 13, 14, I was set on joining the military. And then after that, doubt and things set in, and I decided against it. Yeah, it's difficult to say. So it's something I've reflected on and considered. Like when I think back, and I'm like, would have things have been differently? I think fundamentally, I think I'd be the same person. Like the kind of the foundation of me would be the same, but potentially, I like to romanticize, and I like to think I still would have found my path and way back into coaching. When I was in the military, I'd be enjoying going to the gym, and maybe I'd become like a PT in the gym, and then come out of it and do my own coaching thing. But maybe rather than online coaching, I'd be running some sort of boot camp or something. Yeah. Well, yeah, COVID, and I'm sure everybody's got a very, very similar experience and like can draw upon different experiences. But COVID for me, so the job I was doing at the time was made redundant, and couldn't because everywhere was under lockdown. Couldn't find another job, and stupidly, although I appreciate some of the lessons it taught me, stupidly, really, from a physique point of view, I continued to prep during COVID, and I stepped on stage in 2020, but I dropped a lot of muscle along the way. Yeah, which is not good. But at least I'll never do that again. Touch wood. But it did give me that almost like a bit of an entrepreneurial kick, if you like, where I was like, right, okay, I need to be more in control of my income. If I can lose my job just like that, I need to be capable and more self-efficient and autonomous in terms of being in control of my own income. So yeah, from that regard, it did give me that push, and that's when in January 2021, that's when I went coaching full time. It's where, and this is a really, I keep on saying cliche. This is a really cliche answer. It's where I derive like so much sense, so much meaning, so much fulfillment, and almost what I'm finding is I enjoy helping other people. Like as much as I enjoy seeing my own physique development, I enjoy it with other people so much more. When I know that I've helped somebody, when I see them improve like physically and mentally, and I know I've played a small part in that, and kind of like taking a step back and just thinking about how I've got the opportunity to help people, that's what I enjoy the most. And it's almost like, I can't believe, and I'm so grateful, but I can't believe I can make a career from helping people and getting this much fulfillment and meaning in return. And compared to all the other jobs I've had in the past, I always like to take the positives out of jobs. There's always going to be negatives and positives. I always like to be optimistic, look at the positive side of things. But I've never had anywhere near this sort of like internal positive feeling from any other job or career as I have done from coaching. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, and I would say, expanding on what you've said, and as I would certainly say this to my beginner clients, if you find the biggest person in the gym, let's say, if you find a person that looks most self-assured, looks like they know what they're doing, if you ask them for advice, they'll be so happy to give it to you. Because I think it's like human nature. We just want to kind of instill and pass on some sort of value or some sort of knowledge to somebody else. So yeah, if you're anyone listening to this, if you're a beginner lifter, if you're struggling with confidence, not knowing what you're doing in the gym, just go and approach somebody, and I promise you, like, you'll get a good result. Definitely the snake oil salesman type. What's the word? People. Yeah. I'll come back. I'll come back to this. One second. There's a certain word I'm looking for here. Um, Come on, Dean. You better than this. Sorry. Yeah. Charlatan. That's the word I'm looking for. Right. I'll go back to the answer. So yeah, yeah, sure, George. Definitely the snake oil salesman, charlatan types who really overcomplicate what are simple fundamental principles, but overcomplicate it because they want to try and show people, they want to try and explain something in a really, let's say, complicated way to try and give people a sense that they don't know how they're going to achieve a result because they can't understand what somebody's saying, and just to try and simplify things and cut through the trees, if you like, so that they can see the forest through the trees. I think that's the right saying. Sorry, George. I'll go through this one more time, because I can give a good answer. I just can't speak. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you don't mind, yeah, yeah, bloody. So definitely trying to eliminate the snake oil salesmen, the charlatans who really overcomplicate a topic to try and give people the impression that it needs to be very complicated and therefore they need the help, or that there's some sort of silver bullet or magic pill, and they're the only people with the answer. Try eliminate those people from the industry, simplify things back down, stop people questioning whether they should be on this specific diet or whether they should be doing this training program, and instilling people the autonomy to know that they can get the results. It's just a case of the boring stuff, being consistent, applying effort, and then being consistent over time. Just trying to reduce the noise, if you like, simplify things, and give people the confidence back, that they can actually achieve like the physique they want or the confidence they want, and all of these things. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I could give a top three here. So whey protein, if we class it as a supplement, it's a food product, but it supplements your diet. Whey protein definitely, not because there's anything special about whey protein, but just because it's a very convenient way to hit your protein target. Secondly, would be creatine. Creatine is the most researched. It's fairly inexpensive, but prices everywhere going up at the moment. It's fairly inexpensive, really well researched. There's benefits in terms of muscle gain, and also some cognitive benefits as well. And then the third supplement would probably be, just because the majority of us in the UK at least, we're pretty deficient in it, would be vitamin D3. And just so, because it's so inexpensive, just to hit your daily recommended daily amount of vitamin D3. And then possibly I'll throw in another one, omega 3. Omega 3 is one that's high in omega 3 as opposed to omega 6 and 9, just because that's something that we're typically deficient in the diet. I think those four would be your biggest bang for your buck. Yes, yeah, I would say so. Unless you're on a carnivore diet and eating like nothing but meat, you probably don't need a whey protein. But generally, they're broad ones which I'd recommend. And creatine, omega-3 and vitamin D3, they're very difficult in a typical Western diet. They're very difficult to hit your recommended daily amounts. And with protein, it's not necessarily the recommended daily amount, but the amount you need to kind of optimize muscle gain. Yeah, those four supplements in total would be beneficial, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I've used myself a couple of greens powders, and certainly for clients, what I do with clients is when we get started, I'll ask them to share their my fitness pal with me, and then I'll look at their entries, and if they're not consuming like any fruits or vegetables or very minimal amounts, I'll generally recommend like a greens product. Yeah. Food sources, I always have a food first approach. Food sources are generally better, but yeah, if for whatever reason, if you're not consuming an awful amount, definitely just to cover all bases, it's a good like safety blanket. Yeah, I would say, and this has probably been prevalent for a couple of years, but it seems to be getting worse as social media influencers are getting more and more popular. It's people copying what the influencer is suggesting. So from a training perspective, you get guys going into a gym who have never been in a gym before, and you should start from the ground up. You should like first of all, you should be able to control your body weight. So like you should be able to do body weight exercises, and then you can move on to resistance movements and build up from there. But we're coming in having never lifted a weight before, and you've seen like some guy on TikTok or something, and they're doing like a one arm cable chest press or something like this, and it's a really complicated movement, and it's like no, you need to learn the fundamentals and then build up to that. So it would be maybe people being a little bit more responsible with what they're sharing and what they're suggesting because they built a physique doing the fundamentals, not doing these complicated exercises. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's human nature. We like novelty so much. So when somebody does something new or something like that stands out compared to other people, we kind of like leech onto it. So I do feel empathy for like beginner lifters, especially a younger, more impressionable audience, if they're coming through in this day and age. Because I was quite lucky because of my age, social media, Instagram, TikTok, these things didn't exist when I started training. So it was literally you get in the gym and it's kind of like, I'll just copy what the biggest guy is doing. And then you go from there. Let's see. I've got a couple of things to say here. So one would be just because you can track a variable, and I'm speaking to my former self here, just because you can track a variable doesn't mean you need to. I'm somebody that loves data, but too much data can be overwhelming. So I would say if you've got a fitness tracker, just think about come at it from a minimalist perspective rather than trying to maximize things. Regarding fitness trackers per se, It's definitely beneficial, especially if you're in some sort of weight loss phase. Definitely beneficial to track your step count in some capacity, just to see what your baseline steps are, and then it's something that you can improve, something that you can increase to try and increase your rate of loss, to try and increase the deficit that you're in. Last thing to say is the magic number that's always thrown around is 10,000 steps. Not many people know this. Maybe we do, but not many people know this. But the 10,000 steps, so the pedometers, the step tracker, that was created in Japan. And when they were like, okay, so what's the step count everybody should be aiming for? In Japanese culture, 10,000 is a really, let's say, lucky number. So we were like, right, okay, 10,000, because it was a number that had significance in their culture. So then since then, it's always been like, right, hit 10,000 steps. But it's not from any scientific research or like optimizing health or anything like that. It's just because the Japanese were like, right, okay, we like that number 10,000. That's what we need to be hitting. The Asian culture in general with numbers, yeah. Yeah, yeah. 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 I'll expand on this a little bit. And the blue zone research they've found. So I think there's 6 areas. I don't know. It could be more. It could be less. But I think there's 6 areas where there's blue zones across the world, and they've tried to see what we all had in common. Because they were like, right, okay, is it the diet? Is it this? Is it that? And one thing they found was they all had a great sense of community. I mean, expand on what you've said there. Like one thing I love about Asian culture in general is they really value their elders. They really value like their parents and their grandparents and great grandparents, to the point where in Western culture, it's almost like a bit of a meme now, where when people get older, they get senile and they just say what they want and things, but we don't really we lose that sort of value, if you like. Whereas in an Asian culture, you're seen as having more wisdom and having more to offer because you're older. I mean, expanding on what you said, I think that's the essential part there. When they get older, they still have something to give. They still provide value, and I think like every culture should do that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think going down different alleys here, but yeah, I think as you get older, it's more beneficial, and you've got more of a reason to go, because your quality of life is going to be much like vastly improved if you can still do things like the more actively you are physically. Your quality of life is going to be better. I mean, also your all cause mortality is going to be lower. If you're more physically active. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just in case there's another pandemic, we all need our own home gym. Good point. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. There, yeah, yeah. There's that. There's that. So like, I take it back a little. There needs to be spaces for. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's a very good question, because there's so many there's so many benefits to fitness, and I'm struggling to. I'm trying to make this a short answer. One of the benefits is the confidence it's going to give you, the resilience it's going to give you. If you can, there's so many lessons you can take from fitness. If you can see the changes in your physique that you're capable of making, that can build confidence within building your physique, but also spill into other areas in life. Another thing would be as you get older. again, your quality of life. Like if you're a father, a mother, if you're a grandparent, if you've got a small child and you need to pick them up, you need to be physically capable of doing that. So just in terms of longevity, as you're getting older, if you can keep your body in good shape, if you can go to a gym, your quality of life is going to be better. The time you spend with your loved ones, with your grandchildren, with your children, is going to be better if you can be physically active with them as well. And I think just in general, just being more resilient to stress. Again, just in terms of physical. So obviously, my almost expertise is like physique development in physique sports, but just the biggest benefit I think is just being physically fit, having a better quality of life, being more resilient to stress, being more resilient to being more capable of overcoming illnesses, like all of these things that come with being physically fit. I can, so in this regard, I can only speak from the lens of a male here. So, but I think it's probably going to carry over for females as well. Uh, but for me, as a male, there's something you don't necessarily want an easy life. You want to be capable of overcoming challenges. So you want to be, you don't necessarily want a difficult situation, but if a difficult situation appears, you want to be capable of overcoming it. And in the gym, that's something where when I when I push my body to its limits, let's say, when I improve myself, when I gain confidence, confidence that I've built muscle, I'm capable of doing this, it gives me confidence in other areas as well. So for me, it's kind of like having confidence in all areas of life, and then having the confidence when a difficult situation comes up. It's like, right, okay, I know I can overcome this. I can draw upon my experience doing this, so I know I can apply it here. And then again, coming from a male lens here, so in terms of my like mental well-being, let's say, I believe I'm terming a phrase here from I think his name's Simon Sneak. We've all got a mental fitness. So as well as our physical fitness, we've got a mental fitness as well. And like we could also call it mental bodybuilding, but that's just my bias here. And as well as keeping on top of our physical fitness, I think it can teach us that we also need to keep on top of our mental fitness, because if we're not mentally resilient and mentally strong, it doesn't matter how physically capable we are. Um, I've gone around in a bit of a circle there, but one the last the last benefit would be the sense of community. When I go to the gym, it's my time. It's my time to switch off, but also I've got like plenty of familiar faces there. You'll find the people that go to the gym consistently, they always go at the same times, and then just by design, everybody else goes at the same time. So it's the same group of people in there every time. So just having that little bit of social elements there with people where you've got something in common, and you can have a conversation, you can de-stress a little bit, you can talk about your day. So from like a mental well-being point of view, it's very good to have that social aspect. This is something where sometimes I think, I don't know whether it's a personality trait or whether it's just people just by nature, whether we get addicted to improvement. But I think for me, when I can see when I can see a predictable and tangible and linear progress, like the effort that I put into the gym, provided that I check these boxes, I do the right things, the effort that I put in gets a result. I get that feedback, the results there. So I think it's quite easy to sustain something and to commit to something and be consistent with something if you do see a result over a period of time. And for me, at my training age right now, it's a little bit harder to see results, but I know it's almost like, because it's harder to get the results, it's more satisfying when they come. And I know if I check these boxes, if I do these things, I'm going to get a result. And it's kind of the gratification from when you, and like almost like the dopamine you get from when you achieve that result. And the more difficult it is to attain, almost like the more dopamine, the more gratification you get from it. So long story short, I think it's a very gratifying process. And then provided that you get that feedback, it's very easy to be like, right, okay, I've got that one. I want to get to this next stage, man. Yeah, and this is somewhat of a contentious topic with some people, because you get two camps. Like with anything, the truth is always somewhere in between. But with anything, you get like one extreme to another, where one person's saying like everybody is undertrained, they don't train hard enough, so on and so forth, and everybody and other people are saying, you know, people are overtraining, they need to take more rest days, so on and so forth. And the truth is, it lies somewhere in between. But yeah, rest days are definitely beneficial, definitely important. You know, we break down the muscle in the gym. We actually recover and build a muscle outside of a gym. And it would depend on who we're speaking to. But if somebody's training 7 days a week, we need to be having a conversation there and incorporating some rest days. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know when people, when people don't go to the gym, I literally don't know what they do. I'm like, what do you do? You know, it's like extra 6 to 10 hours a week. What's going on? Yeah, yeah, that's the worry. Yeah, yeah. So the first thing to do is break down how the abs respond to training, and the abs respond to training like any other muscle. So you'll see, and I was guilty of this when I was younger. You would see like a Rocky montage, and he's doing like hundreds of sit-ups, and he's like doing all these things. Or like Muhammad Ali had a famous quote, and it was, he doesn't count his reps when he's doing sit-ups. He doesn't count his reps from the first rep. He starts counting when it gets difficult. And actually, there was something to that. It's the difficult reps which are the ones that are going to actually give you some progress. So expanding on that, or further to that point, a lot of people might go into a gym and want to do like 100 sit-ups, and a goal might be to do 100 sit-ups. But if you can do 100 sit-ups, the first like 85 of those sit-ups weren't stimulative, they weren't difficult. So the best way to train your abs would be training under resistance in like similar rep ranges that you would train any muscle. I forgot what I was going to say at the end of that, but yeah, but just yeah, yeah. Yeah, you know, it's a funny thing. And I think it's because, as a male beauty standard, I think often the first thing that we're drawn to, and when we see people like celebrities or fitness people in the media, the first thing they show is the abs. So I think we've just been conditioned to want to attain that. But it's a very detrimental thing potentially. And I've certainly worked with clients and speak to people where they don't go into their they hold themselves back. They don't go into a calorie surplus. They don't go into like a definitive muscle building phase because they want to maintain their abs. And unfortunately, like fat gain is so much easier than muscle gain. So you need to kind of let go of that your short term ideal physique of having abs. If you want to actually make significant changes to your physique, you need to go into a muscle building phase, a calorie surplus, build some muscle, and then you can diet down. But yeah, I think coming back to it, it just comes down to how we're conditioned, what we see in the media, and we just place a lot of value on somebody having abs. I remember when I first got into it, when I first got into training, I was on like the forums and things, like bodybuilding forums and whatnot, and everybody was obsessed with looking like Brad Pitt in Fight Club, and it just, like mainly because he's got such like a decent set of abs, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It'd be helping the mindset for sure. Because I think you've got to come from, if you want sustainable and long term results, you've got to come from an intrinsic place. So rather than having like an external ideal, rather than comparing yourself to somebody else, you should just see where you're at and then see what's realistic and what you can achieve with the hand that you've been dealt. Because unfortunately, Brad Pitt's got good genetics, and in terms of like his structure and things, how he looks, not everybody's going to be able to attain that. Especially in terms of like for me, for example, my ab insertions, they're not symmetrical. So like I'll never be able to look like Brad Pitt in that regard, but I can make the best of my situation. So yeah, for sure. If somebody came to me, had that conversation, I would then be working on mindset, and I'd be saying, and I wouldn't sign them up for coaching under the false pretense that we're going to achieve Brad Pitt's physique if it's not realistic for him. And certainly working on trying to get better than who they were yesterday, as opposed to somebody else. Yeah. Yeah, and it would depend. It would depend on the long term goal. So if their long term goal was I want to be a boxer, then now obviously we're going bodybuilder. No joking. Obviously we're going for a boxing gym. If their long term goal was I want to improve my physique, I want to build as much muscle as possible, then it's going to be skewed towards an incline towards the bodybuilding route. So depends on the goal. The pros and cons from boxing, if you're going to be talking about the sport, if you're going to be fighting, if you're going to be competing in boxing, then obviously there's some potential risk there. In terms of just for boxing training, you're not going to build as much muscle as you possibly could. You're going to develop a good physique. You're going to be very physically able. You're going to be very physically fit, and you're going to be able to protect yourself if you're ever in some sort of physical altercation. With bodybuilding, you're going to put yourself in a better position to, or at least physique training, physique development, you're going to put yourself in a better position to build as much muscle as possible. And if you've got a very aesthetic goal, you're probably going to achieve it quicker and more efficiently with that route. So they're not necessarily competing ideals. It just depends on somebody's long term goal. So for me personally, I do as little as possible, and that's purely because, and just some context here, I used to do mid distance running, 10Ks, half marathon. I used to play 11-a-side football, so being physically fit was a beneficial thing for what I was doing. For my goals at the moment, it's just physique development. So I use cardio purely as a tool to burn body fat. So if I'm in a calorie deficit, if I get to a point where I don't want to lower my calories anymore, if my expenditure is high, then I'll introduce cardio as like an extra tool to burn more body fat. If somebody comes to me, and I've got plenty of clients where they enjoy cardio, they might enjoy doing cardio, whether it's getting outside and going for a run, being in nature, or whether it's just a sense of achievement, the positive endorphins, the endorphin release, I should say, the sense of achievement from doing cardio. If they enjoy doing it, we build it in, and we can build it in. We just make sure it's not excessive, because it's not going to hinder your muscle gain ability as long as it's appropriate. And then if similar in the same way that I apply it for myself, if a client is in a fat loss phase, and if we get to a point where calories are fairly low, we get to a point where expenditure is fairly high, or we just need something that's going to be more time efficient for burning calories, then we'll definitely implement it. And just in terms of cardio modalities, especially for somebody, if we're in physique development, if we're carrying more muscle than the average person, I'm always aware and always conscious that if you're doing road running, there's a lot of impact there. When your feet are hitting the pavement, there's impact on your joints, and that can impede recovery a little bit, and potentially there could be some wear and tear and some injury risk there. So if somebody's looking to do cardio, I'll encourage them to do a non-impact version of cardio, whether it could be swimming, it could be the cross trainer, recumbent bike, something like that, as opposed to getting out and going road running. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's a lengthening exercise. So you'll get a good stretch when you're doing swimming. Obviously, it's almost like full body. Obviously, not the head and the neck, but yeah, it's like a full body exercise. So I think it can be very restorative as opposed to just like burning calories as well. this comes down to preference and enjoyment. But calisthenics and, you know, some of the best physiques I've seen, especially in the natural space, some of the best physiques I've seen are people who have had a background of either calisthenics or gymnastics or something similar like that. So I definitely think there's a lot of crossover there in terms of physique development, and potentially if you've got a background in that, it's a really good foundation. Again, if somebody's looking to build the most amount of muscle as possible, we'll be sticking to a traditional hypertrophy program. However, if they really enjoy those exercises, there's certain movements we could include which are body weight and calisthenic based, but not necessarily, we wouldn't be doing the whole program around those movements. Yep. Okay, so I'll take you through a coaching day of a life. So for all my clients, I do the check-ins on a weekend. So day of life will be morning routine. I'll wake up, usually on a weekend I'll be a bit blind. So wake up somewhere between 6 a.m., 7 a.m. I'll do my morning routine, get meal one in. During meal one, I'll be sat on my laptop like a good little online coach, and I'll be replying to any messages, going through like admin and things like that. And then once meal one's out of the way, I'll get, if I'm very, very lucky, and if I've not been ID'd and asked for ID for an energy can, I'll get I'll pour like half a can of Monster. Maybe I'll top it up with some water. I can't believe I just admitted that. And then I'll crack on with the check-ins. So I'll go through the check-ins. It'll be like a two hour stint. Get through all the check-ins, and then it'll be time for meal two. And then after that, depending on if it's a training day or a non-training day, if it's a training day, meal two, a pre-workout meal, get to the gym, train, come back, post-workout meal. And then again, with it being a weekend, I'll probably respond to any client messages, respond to any follow-up messages from the check-ins, and then maybe I'll spend the rest of the day with my girlfriend. We'll do something a little bit more, let's say, normal, a little bit more social. So maybe go out for a meal, see if there's anything at the cinema, that sort of thing. Yeah, generally. So if if somebody was coming to me and said, Dean, I'm going to be an online coach, what should I do? I would say set your boundaries, have working hours, like respond to messages between this time and this time. Perhaps that is something I will bring in the future. But at the moment, I generally I respond to messages between sort of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But if a message comes in and it's going to be a quick reply, I've got like a 1 minute rule. If a message comes in and I can deal with it there and then, it takes like 30 seconds to a minute. I'll generally deal with it. If it requires a long response and it's past 7 p.m., I'll wait till the next day. And to be fair, that doesn't come from any pressure from my clients. I think all my clients respect my time. They know that whenever I can respond, I'll respond to them, and they know that I always give them a really detailed response. But it's more so from my side of things. I don't like having something to do. Like I don't like going to sleep if I've got a message where I'm like, right, okay, if I can reply to it, I'm going to reply to it. Honestly, I don't know. I'm joking. I do know. I think I build a really good, probably a couple of arms here. I always build a really good relationship with the clients, and I think they can see I'm not doing this for any sort of like financial gain. There's probably other things I could be doing in life where I could be more financially successful. But again, I think they see how much I care, how much fulfillment I get from it, and genuinely, like no matter what their issue is, I'll always meet them where they're at. When we're having a conversation, I'm always very attentive. I always kind of look at things from all different angles. I usually pick up on things that they don't pick up on. So yeah, generally they see that like how much I care. They see how much I enjoy it, and also just building a relationship. Like they know they can come to me when there's things outside of a coaching. They can come to me. I can steady the ship sometimes because even though the coaching on the face of it is just training and nutrition, there's so much in terms of like things they're dealing with in their private lives and things like that. So it's giving them the assurance that they've got a space, they've got like a safe space where, if you like, where they can talk to me, and yeah, I can just help them through with anything whenever I can. Yep. Yeah, yeah. So have I.